Okay, so fun fact about ginkgos is that ginkgos, this is a dried ginkgo leaf by the way, ginkgos are actually gymnosperms, which means that the ovules are not enclosed in an ovary, so they have like male and female cones, and the ovule is not enclosed in an ovary. Ovule is the part that eventually becomes the seed. And also ginkgos actually have motile sperm, which is also what cycads have as well. So there is some genetic evidence that they are very, very distantly related, because ginkgos are extremely distantly related to anything that is still alive. And cycads and ginkgos look very, very, very different. But believe it or not, they're the closest living relatives to each other, so that's pretty interesting. Very strange, because again, they are very different, but both are gymnosperms. Both do produce male and female cones. Both do have motile sperm, and that's about where the similarities end, because they're very different in a lot of ways, of course. Because again, ginkgos are not really closely related to anything. They, like I said, they have extremely distant relatives, because if you go back far enough in anything that's alive, you'll find that everything is related, because everything came from, one living thing at some point, but it's just a question of how far back. And with ginkgos, it's extremely far back, and cycads are just barely, slightly, just not, they're so barely related to ginkgos, but just barely, which is pretty interesting still. There is, like I said, some very basic similarities, but cycads, if you don't know, are basically the things that kind of, they have like these, usually, well, sometimes, they have like these kind of, almost like pine needles, sort of, and they look kind of like palm trees, so a lot of people mistake them for palm trees, but usually they're shorter, and they are not related to palm trees in any way. They just look similar, sort of. Sometimes they have more like leathery leaves. I guess ginkgos do have leathery leaves, so that might be one similarity, that some cycads have sort of leathery, needly, weird leaves like that. I guess that's one sort of thing that they kind of share in common. But yeah, they're very extremely distantly related, yeah. So it's pretty interesting to see this dried ginkgo leaf. You can see all the veins and stuff on it, which is pretty cool. Flip it over, and yeah. Now, of course, a fresh ginkgo leaf would be a lot bigger than this, but when it dries out, it gets really small, because plant leaves have a lot of water in them. But yeah, it's pretty cool. They have a very unique sort of, let's see if I can get closer, vein structure on them. It's really interesting. Very cool. Such a beautiful leaf. Very nice. Very brittle, as you can see. But when it's dried like this, when they're fresh, they're really leathery, which is really interesting, because there's not many leaves that are really leathery. That's one of the other unique things about ginkgos, is that they have really leathery leaves, which is pretty cool. So anyway, hope you guys learned something, and yeah.